Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here, wishing all of you here in the United States a happy 4th of July or Independence Day. Hope you enjoy having your barbecues or going out and seeing the aliens invade our world again in the upcoming, for the newly released, Independence Day sequel. Today we're going to go All-American with the Transformers All-American Boy, the G1 Autobot Cavalier Hot Rod. Now this particular version of Hot Rod was only available in 1986, as he would be redone in 1987 like the other movie heroes as a Target Master. However, he was also sold side by side with his upgraded form of Rodimus Prime. Now, Hot Rod has always been a popular character, especially due to him being the star, quote-unquote, of the animated Transformers movie. Hot Rod was voiced in the animated movie by Judd Nelson, who was the major guest at this recent year's, unfortunately final, BotCon convention. Some interesting things about Hot Rod include the fact that he was one of the first ones designed toy-wise for the animated movie. And as such, he was intended, the original prototype for Hot Rod was 3 times larger than what the final product would become, due to the fact that the early notes did not depict that he and Rodimus were going to be the same character. So Hot Rod wound up having to be shrunk down considerably. His cartoon mode was the first one to be created, and for whatever reason, he was originally colored in pink. Garish thought, isn't it, folks? But also a strange bit of trivia for you. Watch Hot Rod throughout the events of the animated movie. He never transforms the same way every time. Watch for it. Especially the most noticeable is on Quintessa, where you see his arms rotate behind him. He only does that in that one particular scene. If you've got a slow motion feature on your DVD player or your VHS player, if you still have one of those, you might want to check it out and watch the different ways. Apparently they did not finalize how he was going to transform before the animation model was done. Another thing to point out on Hot Rod before we start going into all the fanciness about him is that since he was a 1986 toy, he does have variants on his pieces. This one is the first edition variant, as it has the metal-made feet and genuine rubber tires. Later versions of Hot Rod would feature plastic tires and plastic feet. Something to be aware of is that did not apply to his reissue on his Target Master the year later, as the Target Master has plastic feet but rubber tires. So if you have one that's a half and half like that, you probably have the Target Master toy. Hot Rod's articulation, surprisingly, is rather limited for an Autobot car, as you can move his arms a little bit from the side on the shoulder. They don't really rotate up there. But the only other articulation he has really in his arms is at the elbow. He can bend at the elbow 90 degrees to basically point his gun straight, or point his guns somewhat down towards the ground. If he's got his gun in hand, it's going to be blocked by the leg. If he doesn't have his gun in, it will go all the way down. The only other articulation he has is at his ankles, but since you can't move his legs any, there's really no point in moving them. So he's sort of a brick in ways. Now, to transform Hot Rod, there's really only one way to do it. You can vary it up as you play with him more and get used to it. For starters, we've got to remove both of his guns and flatten this one arm so it's all straight. To start transforming Hot Rod, we turn him around and we rotate the top part of his car mode so that it's facing the opposite direction. Then next we pop the hood free from the waist. Once we got that separated, before we fold it completely over, we've got to pop the head free and rotate it once we get it all the way up. Rotate it back so that the engine is exposed. Then we can rotate the hood around and secure it in place. Then we turn him over, rotate his forearms. That's something I forgot to mention. He does have rotation there just behind the elbow. Really doesn't allow for a whole lot. Rotate the arms to the side. You want to make sure that the exhaust stacks here are now, you can't see them from this side. They're all, well, would basically be on top at the moment. You take his hip piece here, make sure the head's not latched onto it. Rotate it around so it's that way. Fold up his feet. And we're going to turn the car over. We fold the arms down to the sides. And then lastly, slide his legs up until they snap into place. There we go. And then there's Hot Rod in his familiar race car mode. As an added bonus, one of his photon lasers can be inserted into his engine. You'll want to put a finger down on his head to help hold it in place while you squeeze the gun in. And that's how he looks with that gun in. Or if you want, put in the shorter gun. Either way works. It doesn't really matter. We'll move on here. Roll him out of here. Onto his loose parts while we're already on the subject of showing them up close. Hot Rod comes with 2 photon lasers, but as you can see, they are different from each other. Unlike the standard or the norm that you would expect to find on a lot of the Transformers toys, the guns, while they are the same type of gun, they are different. This one is the short one. It just has the 2 bars out of the back going off to the sides there. And the longer one, while it has similar bars coming out, they are thicker, and this one has something of a little bit of a stock coming out the back of it. So make sure that when you're buying one loose that the guns are different. A lot of dealers do try to claim that the guns are the same, and they are not. Alright, now we're going to take a look at Hot Rod's instructions. And this is the set of instructions for the original toy. You'll see the Target Master ones when I review the Target Master toy. This was done in the style that had been popularized the year before, whereas they were all in black and white. He highlighted things in red to indicate he was an Autobot, despite the fact that it says Heroic Autobot down below. Right here shows the loose parts, and it even shows the 2 guns are different. Simple instructions to make him an attack car, and then the step-by-step way to transform him. from the car into the robot. Quite simple, but like a lot of the other Autobot cars, they were pretty simple to transform. Right here he has a small amount of stickers to put on. Thankfully, the famous flame job on his hood isn't one of them. And right here on the last page you have the rub sign indicator, which was on the top of the car for him, collecting the robot points for the mailaways that were still going on in 1986, and directions on how to read his tech specs. Pretty much standard fare for Transformer instructions. Now last week when we showed you Jetfire, I had the Canadian tech specs for Hot Rod for Jetfire. I'm going to do you one better here on Hot Rod. We actually have the Canadian box for Hot Rod, which lists which has all the stuff here in both languages. Pretty good picture of him here on the box, despite the fact they only show him with one gun. On the top of the box here, you get a simplified version of his transformation. The sides of the box and the bottom more or less just shows the robot and the car. And again, strangely, even though they list down here that it includes 2 lasers, he's only shown with 1. On the back we have the mural that was featured in 1986. I should point out also this is the earlier in the year version of the toy, because later in the year they would have a yellow label down here on his leg that would be indicating a contest that they were running around the time of the animated movie being in theaters. It would mean that the box would include that this toy would also include a Transformers poster. If I get all 4 of them, I will do a review of the posters. Back here on the back, we have his tech specs and his robot points. Hot Rod was worth 2 points. And as you can see here, the tech specs, as this was distributed in Canada, so right down here, Hasbro Canada. Hold it over here on this side. For those of you that are more fluent in French, you might want to pause the video and you can read it over. We'll go back over here and we'll talk about the tech spec. It has a picture of Hot Rod, which matches the one on the front of the box. It's done in red to indicate he's an Autobot. It gives his name as Hot Rod. His function is Cavalier, and his motto is, "My actions speak louder than words." Now, in this essence, a Cavalier is described as a cavalryman, or what would basically be a guy on a horse. Well, sort of similar to the old horse cavalry of World War I, or knights from the ancient medieval times, which is certainly not what Hot Rod is. But Cavalier is also known for an attitude, which is known for being extremely confident, which does perfectly describe Hot Rod's attitudes. Confident, arrogant, rather sure of himself, which means that Hasbro went more with that definition of Cavalier than the military definition. And of course also the other meanings for Cavalier would also include the model of Chevrolet car, which I coincidentally drive, and a breed of spaniel dog. Take that as you may. For you language enthusiasts, the French version would be Chevalier, and the Spanish version would be Caballero. Now that we're done with that, let's get on with his tech spec. This version, since it's Canadian, reads, "Hot Rod is an all-Canadian boy Autobot. which on the American one it would say he's the All-American Autobot. He's a typical adolescent who dreams of being heroic and important. He tends to follow rules too closely. Although he means well, Hot Rod's impulsive actions often get him into trouble. He carries 2 photon lasers that temporarily electromagnetize an enemy robot's microcircuits. Speed 190 kilometers an hour, range 6 kilometers. He can be hot-headed, but he's always a well-meaning, admirable lad and a brave and honorable fighter. And during that take, I went out and dug out the American version of the tech spec. Point out that it does say he is the All-American boy, but it also changes the speed on him to 120 miles per hour and a range of only 4 miles. Seems like a bit of a misprint there, because the 6 kilometers is considerably further than 4 miles. We'll lay the tech spec decoder on here so that you can see the statistics. It gives his strength and intelligence at 10. His speed is 9. Endurance and rank are both 10. His courage is 7. And his firepower and skill are both 10s. Those make him seem pretty powerful. Almost too powerful, if you ask me. This is kind of, how much further does he really have to go in the terms of skill and power and such between Hot Rod and Rodimus here? There really isn't that much. Now, as you would have noticed, there was no reference to Hot Rod becoming Rodimus or any of his dreams of becoming an Autobot leader. A lot of that would have been kept off the tech specs to avoid the early days of spoiling, as the toy would have been released prior to the movie's release. So it kept all information about his role in the movie to a bare minimum. Now we get to, what do I think of him? Well, as a character, Hot Rod is probably a little too important in the lineup. His biggest claim to fame was the animated movie, and while it was good to see him in there, it still brought about the traumatic loss of Optimus Prime. Hot Rod didn't carry over into Rodimus as well as what one could have hoped for, especially after all the years of having Optimus as the leader. Optimus was a considerably more noble character, and Hot Rod's arrogance tended to carry over into Rodimus as well. And as such, arrogant characters, while they do have some place in the series, I think Hot Rod's importance is a bit overblown. Granted, he is meant to resemble and be the young hero that does rise up through the ranks and becomes a great hero. That's been done in the various media constantly and will always be a part of it. But still, I think in the case of this, it does get a little overblown. Part of it is Hasbro's fault, especially for overpowering him on his tech spec. But as the years have come on, Hot Rod still has maintained that level of popularity amongst the fandom, so he will always remain a part of anybody's collection. And if you can happen to find a first edition version like mine here is, then all the better for you. Now, if anybody can just find the go-kart version of him that was given away as a prize from the Decipher the Decepticon contest that was launched in 1986, I think more of us would enjoy that. And that, folks, concludes my review of the Generation 1 Autobot Cavalier Hot Rod. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're looking to get yourself a Hot Rod, I hope you found this video to be informative and useful. Please don't forget, subscribe down below, leave a comment. That's what helps to keep this channel going. This is Sparkster1701 saying catch y'all later.